All right, we're going to talk a little bit about contamination in a way that is not connecting the dots, but needs to be. We have contaminants in our air, we have contaminants in our perfumes, clothes, laundry detergents, food supplies, pesticides, herbicides, soils, contaminants as far as toxins in our pharmaceuticals. Now let's talk about the big killer, contaminants, heavy metals, formaldehyde, detergents, and other proteins and other toxics that have been put into our shots. And this is what got her bumped off of the Science Journal and her big paper. This is why they threatened her. They wanted to gag her, silence her. They actually wanted to kill her. And I'm amazed that she wasn't killed. But they bankrupted her, they stole her paper and her work of research, and they plagiarized it, they stole her patents, they financially ruined her career, they ruined her credit scores, perfect credit, they gagged her for 5 years, and they sealed up her records and her history and wouldn't let her have legal representation or constitutional rights. Her story needs to be told, and this is what these people are capable of. And we're talking about Fauci, Dr. Fauci being the head guy doing this, the head person.
Investigators back in the 90s had actually isolated retroviruses from these people, but the government called them contaminants, that they weren't real and that they didn't have anything to do with the disease. Well, we isolated a new family of viruses that were called xenotropic murine leukemia virus-related virus. So these viruses were murine leukemia viruses, mouse viruses. And so spin forward 2 years, our paper published in one of the best scientific journals in the world in Science, October 8, 2009. Usually that makes one's career. In my case, it ended my life as a scientist as I knew it. Basically the realization, the big oh my God, of all of those sequences we've seen and all of those proteins and all of these contaminants are causing disease. The fact that they were real
are causing disease. All these contaminants, all these proteins from animal sources and other sources, and causing disease, quote unquote. Over 25 million people and more worldwide.
Was just too much for 25 million Americans are infected with the viruses that came out of the lab, out of labs into humans via contaminated blood and vaccines.
By contaminated bloods and vaccines. 25 million, at least. And we're not talking about the CDC talking about the millions that they put cancerous viruses into polio vaccines as well.
And that was so I was fired, jailed, without cause, without hearing, without any civil rights at all, just drug out of my house in shackles one day, November 18, 2011. I refused to denounce the data. I refused to say it was a mistake. We had the data. I showed the data. I showed all of the data. And I just refused. They basically said, tell everybody you made it all up and you can go home. And if you don't, we'll destroy you. And they did. I mean, economically as a profession, but they didn't because thank God for my faith and for my husband and for my family and for the patients, because in order to steal one's passion, my passion wasn't money. Scientists don't make money. My passion was helping people, and the patients never walked away from me. So in 2011, another AIDS researcher in a journal called Frontiers in Microbiology wrote a paper that really cost me a lot. I didn't know he was going to write this paper, but it basically said the most likely way that these murine leukemia virus-related viruses, these types of viruses, entered humans was through vaccines. So when did we start vaccines? 1953, 1934, right in
1953, 1934, 54. That's the year I was born.
the 30s with the polio and what we were doing to attenuate, to make
30s with the polio. Think about that. They started doing this stuff right off the bat.
make the virus less pathogenic, less toxic, is we were passing them through mouse brains. So we were passing them through the brains of mice, and every scientist who works with these viruses and worked at the National Cancer Institute recognized the possibility that if you put human tissue and mouse tissue together, the possibility is that you're going to pick up a virus that is silent in the mouse. That is, it doesn't hurt the mouse, but it kills the human or causes serious disease in the human.
But causes serious disease in the human. They knew that, yet they were doing it anyhow. Why? Population control, money, power, illness, profit off the illness.
So I want people to understand, I want them to think. We live in a society where we're bombarded with commercials, big pharma, so they give you all the warning on Opdivo, the immune therapy that's a new chance for new life. And when you look at the little picture at the bottom, it says they live 12 months versus the 9 months of the control. The control, these experiments aren't done. The vaccines don't have to be made or regulated like drugs. They're bio.
That's the other thing. They're bio, what do they call it? She'll say the word here. But they're not regulated. This is what the other gal from Merrick said. They're not regulated. Let's get this again.
The control, these experiments aren't done. The vaccines don't have to be made or regulated like drugs. They're biologics. They're given a free pass. There's a vaccine court. You can't
sue a vaccine court. She'll say that too.
Sue the doctor. You can't sue the manufacturer. There's a federal court that oversees vaccine injury, and it's more corrupt than anything you could ever imagine. And so they do everything they can to keep the.
And that's what other gals and people have said. This goes with the boys that have this physiological and psychological trauma that is done to vaccines. It's called autism. There's a cure for autism, but these vaccines actually have produced autistic children. And that's a fact, and you can find that out. No matter how much lies they say that doesn't happen. It's lies, it's BS.
The public from knowing that every single shot damages you, and you might not see the cancer for 2 decades. And that
you might not see the cancer for 2 decades, but it's coming. It's coming. And you don't see the neurological damage either, and the physiological damage either. But if you watch the behavior changes in infants, watch their eye color change, the skin color change, watch how their body fights these toxins, you know it's real.
That's the very first thing. If we lived a biblical life, but also a biblical life is render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. That's money. They could have all my money. They don't have any right to do anything to my body. They don't have any right to inject anything I don't want injected into my body. So to live a healthy life, prevent anyone from forcing you to take toxic drugs, and it's mind control. I was the same way. I was brainwashed. How are we brainwashed in our society? We all have the TV on. Interestingly, in this whole XMRV thing, my mom was watching Good Morning America one day back in Frederick, Maryland, and I'm in California. This is probably 2010 or so, or 11, when the press shut everything down. And she says, Judy, it just went around the ticker tape at the bottom of the screen that you XMRV is proven false. You can all go home. It was a lab contaminant. Well, it may well have been a lab contaminant, but it's in humans and it's been there quite a while. So we need to turn off these TVs. The media is 95%. Big Pharma owns the media.
Big Pharma owns the media.
Our politicians, we need to dig deeper. We need to look in the truth. We need to start reading books again. Our book, Plague, is at plaguethebook.com. You can listen to it. You don't have to read it. You can read a chapter at a time. We wrote it that way so that every chapter stands alone, a little like the Bible, because you can always find it important. And it's a story. It's a story every day in jail. It's not all this science. It's what's it like when a 53-year-old woman one day finds herself in jail. Well, I started saying the Lord's Prayer and said, what is going on? And so what I'd like everybody to do is dig deeper, not just my book, but Dr. Suzanne Humphrey's Dissolving Illusions and Rising from the Dead, a brilliant, prominent internist, and the whole dumbing down. We've made our doctors our gods. You don't ask questions. Why not? Scientists don't ask questions. All I did wrong, my only crime, was I asked too many questions. Really? In the United States of America, we're censored. Everything's censored. So
there you are. Pretty powerful. Everything is censored in the United States. We don't have freedoms. We don't have educational freedom. We don't have scientific freedom. We don't have medical freedom. We don't have news freedom. We don't have political freedom or representation, or corporation freedom, foundations freedom. We don't have religious freedom. Not really. We don't have speech freedom. Not really. This is what happens when you get out of line. They try to squish you, lie you, cheat you, steal you, destroy you. It desecrates your fame and your reputation. This is what happens. This is the real world.